Good morning, everybody. This is Broncos for Breakfast. I'll be your host solo today, Scott Kennedy. Sorry, it's just me today. Hopefully, we'll have some fun. We'll see what y'all want to get into today. Some of the things I want to hit on. And then it's important that you are active in the chat because I want to know what you want to talk about. Let me bring in our Facebook groups here. We got Mile High Huddle. We got the Mile High Huddle podcast, daily Broncos coverage, which is broken 10,000 strong. And we've got the Superfan group, Superfan. As we bring those in, we'll get started here. Get those going, the circles going. That's 1, 2, and 3. Welcome in, everybody. This is Broncos for Breakfast. I will be your host today, Scott Kennedy. Nick Kendall is on location. We'll go 30 minutes or so, depending on the chat. I said that yesterday when I was doing a podcast and we went for a full hour. So we'll see how things go, see how active everybody is here, see what questions you might have for me, see what kind of answers I have for you. We want to talk some Broncos injuries. We want to talk some Washington Commanders game. We want to talk overall feel of the team. There are plenty of questions that we didn't quite get to through the week that we've got time to get into them now. As Facebook, YouTube, and those algorithms are reaching their tendrils out into the universe out there, I want to say hello to some folks that got in here nice and early. It was quite busy, so this might take just a second. As we're opening up the chat here. But Kevin Gray was in here nice and early. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Big Mile High salute. Like I said, Nick won't be here, but that doesn't mean you can't wish him a good morning. So good morning to him as well. David Youngkin says, I didn't watch the week 1 game, so I just want them to learn how to finish a game when they have a lead. That's not much to ask. David, I heard a stat that blew my mind when I was listening to the game. I think it was I listened to the radio version and then I watched it after it. Just because I'm not in Denver, I'm in Atlanta. And they said the Denver Broncos have lost 8 straight games in which they had the lead at halftime. My goodness. Speaking of learning how to finish games, that stat is unbelievable. That stat alone is enough to get your strength and conditioning coaches fired. Goodness gracious. 8 straight when you've had a lead. Wow. So yes, David, you are dead on. Learn how to finish these games. It's coming. It's coming. Like I said, we said all week, there's no moral victories, but asked in the offseason, what were my expectations for this team? Competency. Look competent out there. That's the sole expectation I have. Wins and losses. Now let's see. Let's see how that shakes out. What have I predicted? That's different than what I expect. I expected to see competency. I saw that. That expectation's been met. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Usually the biggest leap you make is from week 1 to week 2. We'll see how that goes. You got the right group coming in right now in the Washington Commanders. Denver Luke says, good morning, Nick and Scott. Good morning to you as well. Tyler Brooks is in the house. Good morning, Tyler. Says, good morning, making homemade noodles for customers with my mom here. Well, that's cool. What's the most positive take from this year's team? The most positive take. Let me take a sip on some Lion coffee here. Well, I think about that. The most positive take from this year's team. Oh, see, if you're a cynic like me, I might start looking at the availability of salary cap after the next season that you've got contract flexibility with some of your underperforming players. The most positive storyline for me for this entire year is Javonte Williams. Forget everything else. That Javonte Williams is back and playing. That is the single most good news moment so far for the Denver Broncos. So if I'm doing a good news post, my good news for this team right now is Javonte Williams is back. He looks great. And that to me is a freaking miracle. So that's part of it for me. Jay Roper coming in says, howdy. Howdy to you too as well. Donald coming in says, good morning, Scott. Good morning, Broncos country. Jeremy's in the house. So it'll be interesting to see as we go from week 1 to week 2. In the NFL, week 1 is usually pretty weird. It was definitely weird. And it's the overreaction season. It's not quite as bad in NFL as it used to be in college when you could lose one game and your season would be over, on August 30th. But definitely it was a little interesting for sure. And the big storyline coming out of week 1 for me, unfortunately, was Aaron Rodgers. I was very interested to watch that storyline and to see it unfold, see how he did with that team. He had a down year for him last year, but could he come back? Good team in New York. I'm not making a hot take here or anything. That's not the same team without Aaron Rodgers, with Zach Wilson. We'll see what they do at quarterback. They're throwing some names around. Kevin says, I forgot Nick is hacking. Oh, he might be hiking. I know what you meant. Good morning, Kevin. Let me see here. Let me scroll down here. Here's a new name that's in. Cristiano Rodan coming in. Good morning, Scott and Broncos country. Still mourning that tough loss. Get over it, dude. It's Thursday. It's game day. We got football tonight. No, I'm teasing. You take as long as you need. As long as you need. But I'm looking forward to some football tonight. Watching NFL, watching some junior varsity high school. So I am looking forward to tonight. Want to scroll down. Unfortunately, I don't want to spend the entire time we have here saying hello, but I'm definitely going to get to Troy here, who comes in with a super chat nice and early. He says, good morning, Scott. Do you think we unleash the pass rush this week instead of understandably playing run first against Jacobs? How much of a difference will Jeudy make? Have a great show. This is a really, really interesting question, Troy, because how do you play against a defense against an offense that doesn't really scare you? I might be more, it would be impossible to be more conservative. They did blitz a lot. I might be more apt to think that I'm going to back off a little bit, not let you beat me with the pass because your run game doesn't scare me. So if I take away the pass with my scheme, I'm scheming to take something away. That's what you do. You can't take everything away when you're scheming. My scheme and my game plan going in is to take away the quick passing game at the beginning and make you beat me with the run. So I've got you in 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, which turns into 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 if you throw an incompletion then. Then maybe I get a little bit more aggressive on 3rd and long. The key here, though, is the question you're going to have to ask, that Vance Joseph and Sean Payton are going to have to ask, is can I take away the Washington Commanders running game with base? Do I have to scheme away the running? I don't think you have to. You start looking at him. Brian Robinson's a decent back, but he averaged 3 yards a carry. He had 19 carries, 59 yards, and after that, it gets pretty light. They only had 92 yards. 11 of them came against from Sam Howell in scrambles, their quarterback. But the other part of this is Sam Howell's making his second start. He was a later round, at least day 2. I don't remember for sure, but he wasn't a highly touted prospect. When they announced, we're going with Sam Howell, I'm like, okay, well, they're tossing in the season. This is not a quarterback of the future. For me, I could be wrong, of course, obviously. But I would play not to give up big plays in this one and see if they can beat you. I don't think they can string together 10, 11 play drives the way that the Raiders could with a much better group of weapons on offense. Again, that's not a hot take. When I got Josh Jacobs, Jimmy G over Sam Howell, and I got Devontae Adams over Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin, who is back and healthy, et cetera, the Raiders have a better set of weapons than the Commanders. I can afford to play a little bit more conservatively against the Commanders and see, can you string together a 12-play drive against me and keep the ball for 8 minutes at a time? I don't think they can. So it will. That is a very great. It's a great question and a key to the game coming in on this one. Quentin Caldwell coming in with another super. Thank you, my friend. Says, good morning, everybody. We definitely need the win against the Commanders. There's an understatement. My goodness. O-line has a job to do with that Commanders D-line. I'd love to have at least one of those guys on our defense. Let me get a name for you here as I break this comment down, Quentin. We definitely need to win against the Commanders. You got 0-2 with 2 home losses as 2 home favorites, and you're asking some tough questions. You're asking questions like, all right, if I'm the general manager, I'm already packing my bags. But you're never going to give up on the season as coaches. It's just not in their nature. The players, not necessarily either, but coaches do not tank. Front offices might tank. They might look for the bigger, but coaches is just not in their nature to pack it in. They're going to be coaching their asses off every week. But you start asking some hard questions off the field if you go 0-2. We can get into that, but if there's ever a must-win game in week 2, man, this is it. this is it. You go 0-2 on this one with the slate of games that are scheduled coming up. 0-2 can turn into 1-6, 2-7 in a hurry. In a hurry. And that's a little bit scary. Climbing down in here, I want to say, let me open up my Facebook groups here real quick, so I can check in on y'all as well. Bear with me just one second. Usually I need to do some background for someone else, but the reason why I want to do this is because my guy Michael Ronquillo is coming in with stars, and I want to say thank you for that and make sure I get to see that coming in. So I have to open up Facebook to see that. So thank you very much, Michael. Your support every day through the week. You've stepped it up in September again, like you always do. Um, this is a guy who knows how to finish games. Michael, appreciate it. He says, "Good morning, Scott. I'm Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and buck 'em." And again, thank you for your support coming in with 500 stars over there on Facebook. Um, Let me see here. Um, Jeff Hollick is not in a good mood today. So we just lost to Jimmy G. We will lose to Howell. We suck. It's time to blow the roster up and rebuild. You might not be wrong. It's certainly a negative outlook on things, but it doesn't mean you're wrong. You could lose to Sam Howell. It might be time to blow up this roster. Might be. I'm not saying it is. I want to see some more. Let's get through this game. 1 week at a time, y'all. 1 week at a time. You win this one, you're 1-1. Let's move on to the next one. Start stringing a couple together. But again, going back to the top of the show, when David said, I want to learn how to finish games, when you're 0-8 with a halftime lead, that's a culture change that needs to happen. And it's been one game into the Sean Payton tenure. But I mentioned on Tuesday or Monday, they start running together, that for me, the big point in that game, we can talk EPA, DVOA, and all this NCAA stuff. To me, it boiled down to, you can talk kickers. To me, if I'm going to be a winning team, I've got to put it in the end zone, first and goal at the 8 with a 1-score lead. With a 3-point lead, you punch that one in, the game's over. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's over. I'm an offensive coach. I've got all of this money tied up into my offensive line, all this money tied up into my quarterback. I've got to score a touchdown there. Have to. As soon as you didn't score, with the looming karma of a missed extra point, you could almost write it up like, 16-10, and you're giving them the ball back. I've seen this play before. That one becomes a little bit. That, to me, that's where you've got to finish. You've got to finish the game. That was the big one for me. We can talk individuals, and I'll be happy to get into individuals as we move along. But for me, that was the turning point of the game. Mark Schrader coming in. He says, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you. It is good to see you. What is your take on Sanders not being a part of things last week? Mark, my question would probably end up being, where was he really supposed to get in? Your eye test tells you that Alex Singleton, for me, was not the best player on the field, but the most active. The best player on the field was Pat Surtain. Josie Jewell played okay. They took almost all of the defensive snaps. So I start looking at my edges. Can I put him in? Am I going to put him in as an edge? Probably not. So was it too soon for him? Maybe. And Nick and I got into this, Mark, on Tuesday, saying if you could force more 3rd and longs, you might be better taking Josie Jewell off the field at that point and getting the athleticism of Drew Sanders out there, where I can either use him to rush the passer, use him to match up on a tight end or a running back coming out of the backfield, and just give him one job. It's like, Josie Jewell, the experience, the smarts. Man, if I'm obvious, and that's a phrase that coaches like to use, if I get you obvious, you're 3rd and 8, that's an obvious passing situation. I don't have to be smart. Record that one and put that one out there. I don't have to scheme. I don't have to guess. I don't have to rely on experience. I tell my edge, you got one job. Go get the quarterback. Don't worry about protecting the edge. He's not getting 9 yards if he gets around you. Go get the QB. I can tell my rookie athletic linebacker, you have 2 jobs. man up on this guy or blitz or blitz, go in. So part of that is becoming more obvious. And I promise you, if it wasn't third and short all the time, you would have gotten the ball a hell of a lot more than 6 times. Another stat I looked up this week about just how crazy it was that the Broncos only had 6 possessions. The New Orleans Saints were the other team that won a game by scoring, and I think it was Keith Brugman. So thank you, Keith, who posted this, who just showed up in the chat too. So good morning. I think Keith is the one that said there was only one other team that scored under 17 points and won, or scored 17 or under and won, and it was the Saints. The Saints had 7 possessions. I think they scored 16 and won. They had 7 possessions in the first half. In the first half, they had 7 possessions. The Broncos only had 6 the whole game and managed 16 points. So when we start saying, I see people say, this isn't hard. We held them to 17. We only scored 16. You can't win scoring 16. Okay, I get that. You're right. You need to score more points. But the offense was doing a decent job when they got the ball. You do need to score more points. That's not necessarily on the back of the offense. 7 possessions in the first half for the Saints, 6 possessions all game for the Denver Broncos. Double the possessions, double the points, right? That's pretty easy math. So again, getting them obvious will help your pass rush, third and longs, will help you get pressure on the quarterback, gives you a chance to have Sanders out there to use his athleticism where I'm not worried about run pass options, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the good question, Mark. Appreciate you out there. Let me see here. Keith, I just mentioned Keith was in here. What were your thoughts on Sean Payton making the call to start the season with an onside kick? In my opinion, it was terrible. It was risky. My immediate thought on that, Keith, was listening to the crowd react. I thought it was to me, I call it a statement of intent. When I heard the crowd react to that onside kick when they thought they got it, that place was rocking. Even when they didn't get it, as soon as they came back out on offense, the place was loud, was super loud. To me, it was like, hey, fans, get out of your damn seats because we're here to play. Didn't work out. That's okay. Should I be able to stop a team? And especially if you know it's coming in. Turnovers, you see quick turnarounds on turnovers all the time because the defense isn't mentally there. Like, we just got off the field. Wait a minute, we're going back out. Teams go down and score all the time. This one's more planned. Like defense, you might be getting out there. You might get the ball on the 40. Be ready. It's a little bit different. I didn't mind it too much. But you can point, I can talk about offense and putting the game away first and goal at the 8. And if you were to turn around and say, no, Scott, it was special teams, I wouldn't argue with you. It was special teams that cost this game. A 55-yard kick is difficult, but it's makeable in Denver in decent weather. I know it was raining some, but that's a makeable kick. That's like a 45 to 48 yarder in most places. It's makeable, and extra points, there's no excuse. There's no excuse for mixing extra points. Those have to be made 100 times out of 100. So you could tell me special teams, and I'd listen. I'd listen for sure. But I wouldn't say terrible. I see the positives behind it, and I saw some positives behind it, including how Broncos country reacted to it. So I didn't mind it terribly. Raul disagrees. That feels like a newer name when I say hello as I come down. Here we go. Raul, that feels like a newer name. I'm not positive on that. And he goes, so it was a dumb move. I see that argument. Again, you'll know if I vehemently disagree with something. You'll know. But I see both sides of this, and I lean towards, would I have done it? No. Do I understand it? Yeah, I do. I wasn't. It wasn't one of those things that I'm going to be, rattling and shaking my head over. One of those things that I am going to is not scoring a touchdown on first and goal at the 8 when you've got all the momentum. Another thing that I'm going to do that to is Randy Gregory. Your big dollar, and it's not as big as people start saying. I'm listening, I hear, oh, you pay him $50 million. No. Randy Gregory has a 2-year, $26 million contract with a club option. Right now, you will have paid Randy Gregory 2 years, $26 million, and he'll be looking for work next year. That's the path that he's on. But it's still an 8-figure deal for an edge guy who finished the game with 1 assist and was getting the term I use is stoned all the time. And that's just so bad for Denver Bronco Randy Gregory to say he's getting stoned at the line of scrimmage. I know how that sounds. But he's getting stood up at the line of scrimmage by a backup right tackle in passing situations on back-to-back-to-back plays before the starter's even in there at right tackle. That's bad. You know, if you're going to spend money on these guys, they have to produce. My God. An assist. You had an assist. That's one that I will call out as, hey, yeah, that's a big problem. Onside kick? No, yeah, I wouldn't have done it. Does it bother me as much as Randy Gregory getting an assist? Yeah, no, that bothers me a lot more on that one. So that's one of those things. Let me scroll down here on the chat a little bit. Mark says, I would watch it if he could refrain from drinking coffee. Nope. I understand that, Mark. Part of that also is if I don't drink something while I'm talking, my voice will give out. So I understand it. It's a necessity. It's either that or I'm chewing on, one of these, which gets annoying too. But my voice will give out doing this solo for 45 minutes. And then when I do the audio, so if you want to listen later, I look for the pauses in the audio and I cut those gaps out because I can see them. But I understand. I understand. Normally we get to do 2 of us up here, but dude, if I'm not drinking coffee up here, I'm going to last about 6 minutes and then I'm going to start, sounding a little hoarse. So that's part of it as well, my friend, but I understand. Isaiah comes in. He has a good question. He says, who steps in for Caden? I think we know the answer on that one. Kareem Jackson. If I look at the Denver defense and total snaps, and I sort by total snaps, Kareem Jackson had 55 of the 59 defensive snaps. So he was out there. Well, Caden Stearns went down quickly. He only had 2. So we don't know how much he would have been out there, but the answer is Kareem Jackson is going to step up for him. And Isaac has another good point. He says Damari got cooked. Yeah, that was a problem. Do I have a problem with Damari Mathis being out there, though? Do you have matchup problems? Do you have bad games, or do you have bad decisions? So Damari Mathis getting cooked, could you have helped him out a little bit more? Maybe. Do I blame Damari Mathis on that? He needs to be better, obviously. Predetermined decisions bother me more than, Damari Mathis having a bad game. He needed some help. Maybe you would have gotten a little bit more with Caden Stearns. I'm not sure on that one. Gatorade says, not something you'd smack your head to. Yeah, no, bang. I don't want to turn it bright red, SMH. Let me see here. I want to go through on this a little bit. I've got some things I want to talk to, but I want to make sure I'm hitting. Here's a decent question. Is Lloyd Cushenberry playing good enough for people to eat crow? No, K-Hop. He was okay. He wasn't the worst. I mean, the thing is, the bar has been set so low, K-Hop, for Lloyd Cushenberry, that just being okay is a marked improvement. If you look at he had a couple plays where he was tossed backwards fairly obviously. And then, so I think it was on the first touchdown, linebacker came through and just sent him into the backfield. It's like, oh, that looks like the Lloyd Cushenberry I remember. The very next play, he stood straight up with a defensive tackle and held his ground. Okay, good. Touchdown. All right. So more of those, less of the former. If you're into Pro Football Focus grades for that type of thing, I think he was rated in the 80s, which is about what he's been through the years. 50s, I meant, not 80s. 80s would be great. Lloyd Cushenberry was a 58.5, pass blocking grade of 74.5, and a run block grade of 51.8. He was okay, but we've talked about okay being improvement, that if he's just average, he's no longer a liability. Is he someone that I'm going into next year thinking I have to re-sign, or am I still looking to try and find a replacement? Yes, I am. So no, not necessarily going to eat crow. Sammy says, I look like I'm stoned. You look like you're stoned. No, I'm trying to get that caffeinated bliss on though, but I got 26 years of sobriety coming up. So every once in a while I wish I could sleep a little better and might partake, but no, it's the caffeine for me and then just old. I'm just old. Apologies. um let me see here. I want to go down a little bit. Mr. Scary says, can someone please tell me how ESPN's power rankings has the Broncos below the Giants after they had a 40 burger dropped on them and we lost by 1? Yeah, the Giants dropped a good ways. I think they dropped 9 spots. The one I looked at the beginning of the week was the NFL.com. And they were at home, national TV. And the one Mr. Scary that I don't ever really understand, and I used to complain about this with college football rankings, and that's kind of what those are power rankings. College football rankings are very similar to power rankings. And if I got beat by a team I was supposed to lose to, why did you drop me in the rankings? If I'm number 26 and I play number 1 and I get beat by 14 points, why do I go from 26 to 35? I was supposed to get beat. The Giants were like a 1 or 2 point underdog. I looked this up on Monday. We're like a 1 or 2 point underdog, and they got beat by 40 at home and looked bad doing it. Yeah, they should have dropped a little bit more. Meanwhile, a team like the Colts did better than most people expected against AFC South champion in a game they were supposed to lose, and they fell from 29 to 30. I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to take the time to come out with these opinions, I'm going to take the time to critique them and give my own and see what we have to say. Yeah, and Jeremy says trying to justify a random power ranking is a fool's errand. I get that too. String guy says it's okay. The Broncos are horse. Yes, pun intended. I get it. There's a big horse behind me. Shoot, we're already 30 minutes into this thing. We're going strong. We're still going. So, I appreciate y'all. Gary Palmer comes in and says, good morning, Scott. Thank you so much for the super, my friend. He says, no observations. I just need a win. If we're not winning, then let's blow it up and start over. Tired of promises. Go Broncos and buck them. That blow it up button is right there. We've talked about that a lot going into the season. After the season you had last year with the extensions and everything. So we talked about that a lot during the offseason. The big contracts that you can get out from under starting next year. Now, there's a couple that balloon. Some of the new guys, they balloon pretty well. Ben Powers, his balloons. Mike McGlinchey, his cap number balloons. Russell Wilson, you're going to have to find some money. If you have to move on from him, you're going to eat a big dead cap number. But Justin Simmons' number becomes really manageable. Garrett Bowles, he ain't coming back on that contract. Now, when you can save $16 million by restructuring and or moving on from him. Garrett Bowles' contract. Tim Patrick's contract, unfortunately for him. Cortland Sutton's contract. Those are all big dollar contracts that you can move on from. Let me look at the rankings of the cap hits right now. And you got Russell Wilson as 1, Cortland Sutton 2, Justin Simmons 3, Garrett Bowles 4, Randy Gregory 5. 4 of those 5 you can save a bunch of money on next year, and those are your 6th player with a cap hit over $10 million is then DJ Jones. I bet DJ Jones is get some flexibility coming out of next year too. Yeah, his cap hit goes from 13 to 3 next year. So the way he's been playing, that makes for a restructure candidate to me. You want to keep him. So we talk about, why don't you just restructure guys? Just restructure. Well, in order to restructure, you have to have the threat of cutting them, which if they have a big dead cap number, you really don't. Or you want to keep them longer. I want to put them longer on my contract. So why don't we just restructure Wilson? That's what he would do. No, he wouldn't. They still get paid. Aaron Rodgers restructured his contract and pushed it into 3 extra void years. If the Jets tried to move on from Aaron Rodgers right now, I think it'd cost him $80 million. The best thing that could happen for them is for him to retire. That is a possibility. I don't see that for Russell Wilson. So getting back to where can you get some of this cap room to blow it up? There you go. Well, we can't lose this guy. We can't lose that guy. We can't. Why not? Why not? You tell me which guy that I just mentioned that's been on the team for years and years that has a winning record with the Denver Broncos. Man, there ain't anybody that's untouchable except maybe Pat Surtain. And even then, everybody's got a price. You want to come to me with 3 first-round draft picks? I'll listen for sure. So it's going to be really, really interesting. There's going to be a lot. Whoever's the general manager next year, whether it's George Payton or someone else, there's going to be a lot of work to be done with the guys who are under contract, making those decisions, restructures, and then hitting free agency. Lots of stuff going on. I think I've hit a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about already. I had Randy Gregory. I hit on him. And then a couple of the injuries I wanted to talk about was Jerry Jeudy. I thought it was very interesting how close Jerry Jeudy was to playing last weekend. He went through, a pregame workout. If you're good, you're going. That was one of the things that Sean Payton revealed yesterday at his press conference. That to me means we should see him this week, unless he's had an aggravation. If he was that close and he took care of it from 1 week to the next, he should be good to go this week. Greg Dulcich was not placed on the short-term IR. That's good news. Doesn't mean it still can't happen, but if they're going to do it, they need to do it quickly. I don't expect to see him this week, but I do expect to see Jerry Jeudy this week. And that is very good news. I'm very, very interested to see that. Keith has a good question. Says bigger draft priority, center or tackle? Depends on Garrett Bowles. We just talked a little bit about that. Is Garrett Bowles one who would? Now, I could give him some more. Do you want to extend him for 3? Do you want him counted against your books for 3 more years? Or do you like the idea of, I can get $16 million back on my salary cap and maybe draft a tackle? I think long-term tackle is definitely the answer here. And one of the reasons it's definitely a priority is because you haven't drafted a tackle since Garrett Bowles. That's insane. That's insanity. Centers are easier to get. I can get both. I should be able to, for the first round pick and a third round pick, I should be able to get both. So bigger draft priority for me is tackle, just because you have to put some premium resources behind it to get one. And if you want to have one, even if you want to keep Garrett Bowles, Garrett Bowles is getting older. He's got some years behind him. How much longer is he going to be around? He'll be 32 next year. 2-3 more years. You better start thinking about it for sure. Angel Roca says Sean needs to give Russ some more downfield opportunities. Yeah, it definitely needs to work that way. Got to loosen up. If you're going to run the ball, you don't want to face 11 in the box. And this Washington defense, their defensive front is really good. The backside of things, not the same. So they will be more vulnerable in the passing game. And I would love to see Jerry Jeudy involved. I'd love to see Marvin Mims involved. Get those guys, get some quicks, maybe get single coverage on Courtland Sutton. If I see that, throw it deep. Let's see if Courtland Sutton can go up and get it. Holt Lex Park coming in. Hopefully he's behaving himself. I don't mind if people come in and have things to say, as long as they're fairly polite about it. Says the Commanders defense will destroy Denver. Maybe, but the Arizona Cardinals, who looked pretty good in the preseason against Denver, sacked Sam Howell 6 times. Washington only got to Joshua Dobbs 3. These are 2 teams I think are being considered for possible number 1, number 2 overall picks next year. The Arizona Cardinals and Washington Commanders. And the Cardinals, who are underdogs in all 17 games this year, made it interesting for sure. And they only say, just real quick on this, the Commanders' offense is better than the Raiders. We'll see. I don't think so, but they might be. Again, I'm not going to argue with you on this one. I will just say I disagree, and we'll find out. I'd rather have Jimmy G, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs as my three-headed monster than Sam Howell. I love Terry McLaurin. Don't get me wrong. I think he's great. But I think Jimmy G's kind of an underrated quarterback. Not very well liked, especially now that he's a Raider. But I think he is underrated for what he's done in his career, which is win, 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 win. Put that all in Shanahan, fine. But you want to talk about knowing how to win games? The man has won 75% of his starts. That's not bad. Let me see if there's any last things we've got to go. Here's a question. Rodder Cook says, who gets Caleb Williams? Arizona Cardinals end up with the number 1 pick. But the NFL and NCAA are going to find themselves in competition more and more often. If Arizona finishes 0-17 or with the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams could stay at USC and make just as much money as a first-round draft pick. The answer to this question, who gets Caleb Williams, might be the USC Trojans. Wouldn't that be interesting? On that note, we've been here just about 40 minutes or so. Let me scroll to the bottom and see if there's anything here that's burning here before it's too long. Otherwise, I think I'm probably going to get out of here. And we'll get ready for Thursday night football. And the Priests will be back tonight to preview the game much more in depth than I'm able to do on my own. So let me see here. TS wants to say, I swear if Mims has less than 5 targets, yeah, part of that's having the ball, getting plenty of plays. String guy asks, so you're keeping Russ for how many more years, Scott? Ooh, good question. Talking about those numbers, it starts to make much more sense to move on from him following the 2025 season. Following 2023, if I were to make a move, if I had to blow things up, you'd be better off keeping him and not playing him than you would trying to move him, unless you can get a trade. But who's going to take, if he's not playing well, you can't get anybody to take his money. His cap hit for 2024, his dead cap hit is $85 million. Trying to get out from under that is insanity when he's got a $35 million cap hit. You're much better making him inactive and having him as a $35 million cap hit and then cutting him the next year, moving on from him the next year. But his contract then guarantees a certain amount of money for 2025, but it's still less. It starts becoming a little bit more even where you're cap neutral. He still has a $50 million dead cap hit in 2025. You've got to get a return on Russell Wilson if you're going to do anything in the next 3 years. You have to. Financially, you've got too many resources tied up. No talk about as a quarterback the most important position in the NFL. It is. But you've got so many resources tied up in your quarterback that if you don't get a return on that, you're just crippled. You're going out there with one arm tied behind your back, unfortunately. Score predictions. That's a pretty good comment here. Score predictions. I think there'll be more points a little bit this one. I do think the Broncos win this one comfortably. And apologies to Holt, our friend here from our Washington fan, is very, very confident in his predictions. I'm not a fan of the Washington Commanders roster right now. I think they're in a rebuilding process, and I'm happy for guys like Holt and the Washington Commanders fans that they have a new ownership, because they were never going to move to another level while they had Daniel Snyder. So that they've got new ownership is good for the franchise, good for them. I just don't think they're there yet. So I'm going to go somewhere in the neighborhood of 27-17. That's I think that would be the over and the cover for the Denver Broncos. And I like that will be my prediction. I like the Broncos to win this one at home against a Commanders team that is kind of in transition for that one. Aki Dragon has 16-13. Me and Michael Ronquillo were pretty close. Nick Klinger says, Broncos, baby, buck 'em. New to the show. Thanks for all y'all do. Nick, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Certainly appreciate it. Let me see. And I think that's going to just about do it for us. Michael Ronquillo came in to close us out. I can't help but answer some of these questions because I love them. Facebook user, I'm not sure if this is Benjamin or Ernie or one of the Facebook users that come in on that other channel. You think Peyton is regretting shipping off Alberto Cuebanam? No, I don't. Um, you're always a little bit worried about this stuff, but Alberto had his chances with 3 different coaching staffs. He had his chances, and he wasn't able to get on the field. Didn't play a snap of special teams. Was considered surplus to requirements from 3 different coaches. So you can blame. Oh, he was great when as soon as Hackett was gone. No, he wasn't. He was okay. There's a phrase I've used, and y'all have heard me say it before. If you're not new to the show, is you can't measure someone's heart. That's an old phrase. We get that one. When I was scouting, I always say I had an amendment to that. It was like, but you can damn sure tell if he's got one or not. Watch how a player acts when he doesn't have the ball. Watch them play special teams. Watch them do their jobs when they're not involved. Are they running balls out on their routes? Are they blocking if you got 2 back in a kick return? Are they going headfirst to block for the guy that got the ball? If you're a tight end who's a primary, are you running out your assignments? Are you blocking? I got a feeling I know the answer to that one after Alberto, and it wasn't going to happen for him in Denver. He got too comfortable, and he needed a fresh start where needed to say, listen, either get it together or you're going to be out of the league. Seth coming in. Appreciate you, Seth. Says the Broncos have to stop Johan Dotson. He's better than Jacoby Myers. I think you're right on that one too. Is Devontae Adams better than Terry McLaurin? Yeah, probably. The overall weapons. But yeah, you've got to stop the number 2 receiver here. Riley Moss was limited in practice, so he was a participant. He's been playing. That will help. And then you have to count on Damari Mathis not being as bad as he was last week. We've seen him have bad games and bounce back. Grover coming in says, wanted to send a quick shout out and love. Thanks, Scott. Even though my Phils suffer at the hands of your Braves. It's been reversed before too. They go back and forth. Couple of, Phils have a big money team, and this Braves team's, they're pretty special to watch right now. I've been a fan I've seen a lot of good Braves teams. I've seen a lot of bad Braves teams. This is as good a Braves team as I've ever seen. Top to bottom, back to front, et cetera, et cetera. 1 to 9 through the lineup. They're fun to watch. And I appreciate you sending the love and getting us through. I said Michael was going to close us out with the stars, but Ethan's going to close us out, and then we're going to get out of here. It says, great show, Scott and Broncos country. Have a great weekend. Go Broncos. Hope everyone is doing well. I hope everybody has a safe and fantastic weekend and enjoys your football. I will see y'all tonight. I should be in the chat tonight, helping to produce the Mile High Huddle podcast with your priests. And I will be back on Sunday in the show where we can hopefully talk, for your sake and your mental health, a Broncos win. And because I picked them to win, I root for me. Let's be honest. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks for those that contributed. Michael, Troy, Quentin, Gary, Seth, Grover, Ethan. Love y'all. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.